guys and dolls, today I'm going to be doing a review of the IT Cosmetics Naturally Pretty palette, but before I get started I do want to mention, yes, I have had a hair cut and color change. I will be discussing all of that in a future video. I filmed myself redoing my color and changing things a little bit, so I will go ahead and have that probably at the end of this week or the beginning of next week for you. Here we are again. Here's another super popular palette that I'm just like not really all that excited about. I will say I'm not the only one. I included this with my haul in May and a lot of people were like, oh yeah, that palette was terrible. So it's not just me this time. I know with the Lorac Pro, a lot of people just lost their minds over the fact that I don't like that palette. And I do want to say I don't think the Lorac Pro palette is unusable, neither is this one, but just putting that out there. So the IT Cosmetics Naturally Pretty palette is a permanent eyeshadow palette, and I'm always really excited for permanent eyeshadow palettes because I hate that feeling of like urgency when something's limited edition. You're like, oh shit, I gotta make a video about this right now, otherwise it's gonna be sold out and people can't get it, and it stresses me out and I can't take the pressure. Occasionally I'll buy something that's limited edition if it's particularly fabulous or if it's really exciting or whatever, but overall I do like to buy eyeshadow palettes that are permanent because it kind of makes the whole thing a little bit, calm down. You guys don't have to worry about rushing out to get it. You guys can watch multiple reviews before deciding whether or not something is good. It's a better investment for me personally because I can make a video about it now. I can make a video about it from 6 months from now. I can make a video about it 2 years from now. I tend to prefer permanent palettes. So I wanted to love this. No, I don't. So let's talk about the packaging. It is in a light pink velvet box with a snap magnetic closure. Nothing wrong with the shape or form or function of this palette, but it's ugly. The pink velvetness of it just reminds me of this horrible couch I had when I was like 21 years old, and I just hated that thing. It was a hand-me-down of a hand-me-down of a hand-me-down. Ugh, that's just a personal note though. That has no bearing. I just personally think it's ugly. Beyond that, because it's a light color and it's velvet, it attracts dust like a magnet, and that is a bummer because I haven't even had this that long and it's already starting to look really gross. Additionally, all the lettering is just like a sticker and it's actually starting to peel up around the sides here. So that's not so good. But all that said, if what was inside was great, I probably would have a much kinder view of those types of things, but inside it doesn't get much better. Opening up the palette, we have a shiny gold interior. It says Naturally Pretty on it. It has a mirror. So anyway, getting to the good stuff, or the not so good stuff in this case. So inside the palette you have just this beautiful no-nonsense neutral palette. It's gorgeous. There's beautiful highlight shades. There's all kinds of different transitioning colors that I thought would be so great for using on so many different eye looks, so many different skin tones. I got like hot under the collar thinking about it. There's purples, there's blues, there's some oranges. I mean, this is good. It's got black, and then it has this transforming pearl shade, and this is supposed to be one that you can put over the other ones to change them in some way. What I found that the transforming pearl really does is it kind of shears it out and makes it like kind of lighter and a little shiny. So for the rest of this review, I'm not really going to discuss Transforming Pearl, except to say that it is a good quality. So that one is excluded from the commentary for the rest of these. So the texture of these eyeshadows is called Matte Luxe, and I guess that's meant to mean that it's sort of like a satin texture because they're not really full-on mattes. And that alone is actually a definite benefit for me because I think that sometimes matte eyeshadows, particularly like MAC's regular matte eyeshadows, are so dry and they look really terrible on anyone with very dry skin or anyone with mature skin. It just makes the skin look really crepey. It actually sometimes looks worse than shimmer. So I really appreciated the fact that they were a satin texture. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of the colors in this palette are lacking in pigmentation, and they're lacking in something that I want to describe as like grip. If you touch them, super, super, super silky powders. I mean, wow. Amazing. It's the thing that made me buy the palette. And they swatch pretty great because they're sort of powdery, but unfortunately they're lacking that little something extra that makes it actually stick onto the eye and stay there. And it's a fine line with eyeshadows. You want them to be super blendable, but you also don't want them to blend away to nothing. And what I found, particularly with the eyeshadows in the top row, is they tend to blend out to nothing. They tend to be very easy to overblend. They tend to be very easy to fade. So even when you do apply them well, they do tend to fade, which is such a freaking bummer. With all that said, there are good eyeshadows in this palette, and they're pretty much all on this bottom row. With the exception of All Heart, I think the entire bottom row is actually pretty darn good. I think that Soulful is a good color, and the rest of the palette pretty much stinks. So that is such a bummer. This is $42. I feel like at that price point, I should be colored and pressed, and I'm just not. I'm just not excited about it. Now, a couple of situations where I can understand that people might really like this. If you have oilier skin, this might work better for you because your skin naturally has more oil to grip the powder. If you used a creamy base, this might work out for you. But at a $42 price point, you shouldn't have to do that. I'm disappointed because I wanted to love this, you guys. As I mentioned, I wanted to love it because it was a permanent eyeshadow palette. I wanted to love it because it was cruelty-free. You can get it in Ulta, so it's easy to find. But it's just not doing it for me, and I can't fake it, babe. We gotta break up. The most succinct way for me to explain how much I don't like this palette is simply to say, you guys know I'm not a big fan of the Lorac Pro palette, right? I'd rather use the Lorac Pro than this. So I'm going to be returning this bad boy. It's going back to Ulta. Makes me angry almost that I don't like it. I think I hate it even more because I don't like it. If you enjoy it, I think that's great. I think it's interesting how we all have such different skins. We have different expectations. That some of the eyeshadows in here are exceptionally good, and I think the rest of them are exceptionally bad. And the fact that this costs $42, it's just not acceptable in my opinion. I almost want them to like reformulate this and bring it out. I don't think they're gonna do that just because I said, because I mean, what do they care what I think? If for you half the palette is worth the $42 price, or I think it's like $38 if you get it through QVC, then this might be great for you. I personally, I think it's because like I have a lot of eyeshadow, so I'm like, I could dupe that with that, I could dupe that with that, I could, make things happen with other eyeshadows that I'm less inclined to go, yeah, this is totally worth it. Now, if this had been absolutely excellent, I would have been jumping for joy because it would be like, hey, instead of buying all these different eyeshadows, you could just buy this one palette. And that's just not the case. I just don't think that it is ultimately worth it. I think you would be, in this case, better off buying them individually because you're going to get better quality out of it. Hopefully that explains how I feel about this palette. I feel like I'm just talking in circles, but anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I will see you guys in a couple days with a tutorial for this look, which of course is using this palette. So I do like some of the eyeshadows, and I'm not a total hater. It has so much potential, and it was just so disappointing. I wanted to love you. I am very curious to know what you guys think of this palette. Have you tried it? What do you think? Do you love it? Do you hate it? I want to know every little detail. So go ahead and leave me a comment down below. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to keep up with all of my goings on. Hear about new videos before they come out. Sometimes I haul things. Like I actually hauled this on Instagram way before I showed it to you guys on YouTube. So anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be a tutorial for this look. And I'll see you then. See you, bye.